Tubbs be the name, boy, you know I got it. Oh, you big mad, boy, you need to stop it. Tell me how these fools deserve to call to play. Look, they ain't trying to push the culture, they ain't trying to help the people. That's why I spit the truth like a preacher in the pulpit. Optimus Prime, bro, my rhyme Optimus. Transform, switching flows. The attitude and gratitude to be half as mad as you, I thank you. Cause it made me who I am. Got my head held high, bitch don't kill my vibe. Trust the lane's gonna try, I'm still royalty.
Jay, thank you for having me to your studio today. Tell me when you got into music and making, like the process behind making it.
Oh man, I've been into music probably ever since I was a little kid, honestly. But just, you know, listening and being curious about stuff and just kind of grew up into it, and next thing you know, boom, you know, working in the studio and producing music. And
but I can't imagine it was that easy. It was not boom, now you are producing and making and rapping and doing all the things. So tell me a little bit about that journey.
Well, like I said, I go back to when I was younger. My mom actually got me into music. She was a real big hip hop person. She put me on groups like, Outkast is probably my biggest one. That's one of my favorites and most versatile groups. And I remember, for a lot of people who don't remember cassette tapes.
I do.
I got the opportunity to check out some of that and started writing, and was pretty much writing and rapping about nothing. Pretty much, just a little kid, like what am I talking about, you know? But just that love, just the creativity behind it, and just hearing different styles, and I was just like, man, you know, this is something really cool. So, you know, I grew up and I played basketball, roller skated, and all these kind of different things. You know, just a lot of stuff to kind of exercise my creativity, but it always comes back to music, you know. And I just kind of got curious. So I just took the route of being self-taught, really. I didn't have no professional training or anything like that.
So you mentioned that you were curious and you wanted to kind of figure things out. So is that what really led to the production side, to really wanting to get onto that side of it?
Yeah, I would say, because kind of like when I started writing and rapping, that was more so, you know, like I said, that's kind of where I started. But then I had this opportunity where I was able to, I was wanting to produce songs and, you know, like put music out. And I was like, man, I can't find any producers to work with and stuff like that. So with the lack of resources at that time when I first started, I was like, man, maybe I can get in here and dive in and learn how to do it myself.
That's incredible. So how did you learn how to do it yourself? Like I said, this looks like a spaceship to me. Like, I don't understand how any of that works. Was it daunting, or were you just excited to dive in?
I was excited to dive in, definitely. A lot of bumps and bruises, you know, trying to figure everything out. But, you know, with enough study and practicing, you know, you just kind of get into it and you just kind of keep evolving. But I started from a program called, at the time, they called it Fruity Loops. So like that's pretty marketable, right?
Yeah, right.
But now they transitioned to a company called FL Studios. So they still have the Fruity Loops moniker or whatnot, but it was really simple based. You know, it was a lot like the iPhone, if you will. You know, it's really user friendly and easy for amateurs to become a producer.
When you got into it, did you know immediately, like, oh, I love this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, it's just something about hearing, you know, for me, it's just like 808 driven. You know, like, you know, when you hear the boom coming out of a speaker, it's like, oh yeah, this is it right here. You know?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your rap career. So you mentioned that when you were a kid, you were just rapping about nothing. Yeah, but were you good at it? Did it come easily to you from the beginning?
Yes, it definitely came easily. You know, I think the biggest part about me growing up was, you know, trying to find your own sound, you know, because you have all these inspirations and people that, like I was mentioning, Outkast, you know, people like that. It's like, it's hard to not want to follow that trend.
Of course.
But as you get older and you find your voice, you find who you are as a person, and then you start creating the content that molds around you as a person. So, which kind of leads to my name, you know, Jay Tubbs, but my actual name is Jay Tubbs, Jamaris Tubbs, because I don't want to go by a different name or a different moniker, because when you hear my music, you hear an extension of who I am actually as a person.
Yeah. What inspires your music? And now that you have found your voice, what do you find yourself writing about?
Man, everything pertaining to life, really, you know,
Yeah.
everyday people. You know, the ups and the downs, because a lot of the times when it comes to hip hop music, or even just, you know, just music in general, you hear a lot, you see a lot of the good side and the party and the fun, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, that's a part of your life, but let's talk about a lot of stuff that everyday people experience as well.
Yeah. Now tell me a little bit about how you got into DJing. Did that run parallel to production and all of that, or?
It was that was probably the last piece that came in,
Okay.
and I was in college at the time. I went to Indiana Tech, and yeah, a lot of my friends was like, "Hey man, you rap, you produce, you should know how to DJ, right?" You know, and just like I'm like, no, that's actually kind of different, you
Yeah.
know. But the thing that came along with is just having a broad ear and just loving music, you know.
Yeah.
So with that, you know, it took some time to kind of get myself educated with the technical side of DJing. But as far as my love for music, I always had a wide base of stuff. So I listen to everything from hip hop to classic rock to electronic, you know, you name it. So
Yeah. Now, when you go to DJ, tell me about the art of that. Are you trying to keep in mind the audience that you are playing for and play based on what you think they will like, or how does that work? Or do you just play what you like?
Oh, well, that's the part about DJing that a lot of people don't know. It's totally not about
It's
you.
not about you.
And I would say that part is definitely playing to the demographic. So, you know, whatever the event calls for, just like we were talking a little bit about the skate event.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of disco, it was a lot of funk, it was a lot of like old school R&B and stuff like that, like 70s, 80s kind of stuff, you know. So it just kind of like tailor-made for that occasion, you know. And then usually I just kind of go from there. That's the fun part about that, especially being, you know, wide based with your music taste, you know.
Yeah.
You just kind of like, oh man, this is sound good. I can bounce here, I'll bounce there, you know, so.
How do you put a show together, or do you? Is it something that you plan out in advance, or are you just kind of feeling the crowd and seeing what is gonna come next?
I would definitely say feel the crowd.
Yeah.
That's probably the adrenaline rush of DJing. You know, yeah. I mean, even as an MC, even, you know, it's just like you just feel the crowd out. Like, okay, they're leaning towards more a little bit of this style, so
Yeah.
I need to go more that route. You know, so I'll have some Xing some stuff out at the last minute and
Sure.
adding some things in. You know.
That's insane. How are there can't be enough hours in the day to.
Yeah, you'll get lost in it sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, because you also, I mean, in addition to music, you are vlogging and you have these beautifully produced music videos. And how do you get it all done? What does a day look like for you?
Oh man, it definitely varies, and sometimes I have to wear one hat in one day.
Right,
you know, 'cause
right,
like
right.
doing all of them is like it's a lot.
It's too much, yeah.
But let's say, you know, a typical day, let's say at the studio, likely I'm writing some new material, producing. Usually I produce a beat kind of ahead of time because I have a home studio as well. So I'll kind of get my ideas out,
Okay.
and I'll come here and I can finish them. You know, so I'll come here, fine tune them, polish them a little bit, and then I can kind of start my writing process. And after that, I'll start to thinking of like, you know, features, or if I can have a live instrumentation on it, and then just kind of like just start to build. But it's really not no formal format to it. Some things come faster than the others. Sometimes lyrics comes before the production side of it.
How have you grown and evolved as an artist? You make it sound really easy, and I can't imagine that it has been. So how have you grown?
I think honestly just the taking the time, just being around, being a sponge, you know, watching a lot of people before me, locally, regionally, and even nationally. I've grown some relationships with some people who are on the forefront, and just honestly, just like I said, being a sponge, you know, and also just being, you know, I'm still a lover of music. So, you know, like I try to see it from a consumer, you know, perspective as well.
Yeah. So what's next? Do you have a goal or a dream that is beyond where you are now?
It's really, really important for me to just help continue to push the culture of hip hop or just music in general, and just really kind of stand back and being a curator, you know, helping younger MCs or just younger musicians, DJs and stuff, just come along and be like, hey, this craft is still here, it's still a necessity, you know, and you know, art makes the world go around. So you know, it's getting to the point where they're almost taking art out of schools and music out of schools and stuff, and you know, that's pretty heartbreaking. So I like to, you know, that's one of the biggest things for me is, you know, being able to leave something that people are like, hey man, you know, that the culture is still pretty cool and we can still attack this, we can still do this.
Yeah. Does it scare you that the technology keeps changing and evolving, because you want it to be a relevant art, but it's hard to keep up?
Yes. I would like to say it's good and bad. So you find the good sides of it where the accessibility for everybody to create.
Right.
And going back to that program I was saying, you know, with Fruity Loops, you know, most of the time, you know, a lot of people can't afford a $50,000 mixing board, you know, so it's like, so being able to do things digitally and you can learn that aspect of it in a way, you know, inexpensive way. You know, it helps people to want to learn and be able to learn, but also at the same time, it gives the opportunity for a lot of people who's maybe not that good, unfortunately. But you know, but we get to push it out, so that's the most important
There
part.
you go. What is the best part about working within your passion? I can tell how passionate you are about music, and you have built your whole life around it. What is that like?
I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. Just for me, it's just it's part of who I am. You know, I get to live it. I get to do this. It's just easy. You know, like I said, it's grassrooted for me. It's literally something that I come from my youth all the way up to an adult. So when I step into situations where I have to create or get to create, or just simply talk music, when like we're talking right now, you know, it's easy for me.
I was going to say, what would you be if you weren't a musician and producer and DJ? Do you even consider that?
I don't see anything outside of that. It's so strange because like I have my college degree, my day job, I work at a bank. You know, but I still come back home to music.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, please continue to create. Make sure that this art form continues.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by